Recently, more and more workplaces have been giving employees ultimatums to either get vaccinated or present a negative COVID test weekly. But some workers have decided to simply quit. So, what does this mean for employee retention? I'm Kalilah Reynolds, and it's time for another episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. Joining me now to discuss, we have President of the Caribbean Employers Confederation, Chen. Hi, Wayne. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks, given all that's happening.
Given all that's happening, indeed. So I understand now that because of the pandemic and this whole issue with the vaccine, should you get vaccinated, shouldn't you get vaccinated, how should employers handle it, there is now an issue with employee retention, meaning businesses being able to keep their employees, as many people are just opting not to stay. Is that the case?
That might be the few, but I get the sense from the organizations that I deal with that most people are staying. And in fact, in you started off with a left hook, which is the vaccine. Even in instances where businesses in Jamaica and across the region have mandated vaccinations, people have quietly acceded in for the most part, because given the uncertainties of the pandemic, most people would prefer the stability of a paid job of tenure than the uncertainty of going out into what has been a soft employment market. Though I put a caveat there to say that with the rebound of the economy, that situation is going to change rapidly.
I
Or
know
we
in the
forecast.
United States, it's been an issue. It's been raised. I saw where they're having reporting job losses as a result of this issue. In Jamaica, do we have data that measures that?
We have data. I haven't seen the latest employment figures. You would know that, right, that the pandemic really hit Jamaica in March of last year, and it coincided with Jamaica's lowest unemployment since we have started measuring for accurately for about 50 years. So it has been a bit of a tragedy where the employment numbers were concerned, and we did see a rise in unemployment. But our expectation is that those numbers have tapered off and employment will continue to rise again as the economy revives and reopens.
So, what was employee retention looking like pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID, it was pretty good. The job market was pretty. The market was pretty good. As I said, the unemployment numbers were the lowest, certainly in my living memory. We had fallen down. I can't remember the number right off. I know it was high single digit, around 8%, if I recall correctly. Could be a little higher. What we saw was a job loss. Certainly, immediately, hospitality was hit. The BPOs took a small hit, but from recent reports, BPO employment might be even higher than it was just before the pandemic. So that has rebounded nicely. We expect tourism numbers, while not hitting where it was in March of last year, to certainly have recovered a bit. Our construction has been doing pretty well. Distribution has been pretty stable. Distribution, retailing, commerce has been pretty stable. So we expect any fallout during the pandemic to go away as we recover.
So, what's your view? Because, like I said, we started out with that issue of the getting the jab. What's your view on workplaces or employers giving employees ultimatums to get vaccinated?
Well, I use this analogy. Let's start with the smallest workforce most of us have, which is our household helpers and our nannies, or caregivers. And I put the question to you: do you, as an employer of a helper, gardener, caregiver for your elderly parents, or caregiver for your children, have the right to determine that the person who enters your household is vaccinated, given the fact that worldwide more than half the world's population has already received a single jab, that we have enough evidence now after months. I believe the first COVID vaccines started being deployed from November of last year. So we've had a year of experience now with COVID vaccines. Do you have that right? And if you have that right, does someone operating a small or medium-sized enterprise have a similar right to ensure that they themselves are protected, that workers, employees, customers who want to work in a safe environment, minimizing the risk of contracting or getting severely sick from COVID if they have that right to a safe workplace? And if it applies to the household, if it applies to the small or medium-sized enterprise, why shouldn't it apply the same principle to a large organization? So from an employer's point of view, I think that employers should be entitled to ask everyone who operates within their space, whether employees, clients, or other stakeholders, to be vaccinated.
But then how do you deal with the potential conflict that arises? Like, I could understand if you have a new employee and you, when in the vetting process and finding employees, you can say, well, you must be vaccinated. But if you have existing employees, how do you deal with potential conflict if an employee doesn't want to get vaccinated?
And that's a very good question. That comes back down to the individual discussion and negotiation that you have with those individual employees. It's very clear in the case of advertising for new employees that you have a right to ask for new employees to be vaccinated. In the case where an employment contract might be silent on the issue, some organizations have argued that the contract of employment is worded in such a way to include whatever measures, and that is, extrapolated, and that's where lawyers get busy. But the fact is that I don't believe that it should be legally mandated. I believe that it should be left to the discussion and negotiation with the individual employees.
So some businesses have already begun issuing vaccine mandates for their staff and insisting staff become vaccinated, or the alternative being to present a negative PCR test every week, every other week, or so on. And we've seen some examples of this already. We saw CVM, we saw, I don't remember the others.
Digicel, NCB,
Right.
Pyramid,
And those have been making the news.
Yes.
So are you aware what the response has been from staff to those measures? Have staff largely complied, or are you starting to see some people
staff has largely complied. I also get reports from the hospitality sector where several large hotels, in fact, I'm hard pressed to think of any of the operators within the hospitality sector who have not asked their workers to be vaccinated. Because what Jamaica hasn't realized, or Jamaicans may not have caught up on, is that we already have 7 or 8 Caribbean destinations that are advertising their resorts and their destinations as fully vaccinated. And more you find the large companies that transport people into Jamaica. They have been quietly telling destinations in the Caribbean, make sure that you're fully vaccinated because our customers are asking for this. And if whatever happens in the hospitality sector over time, you will understand that will affect Jamaica's whole relationship with the rest of the, with how we interact with the rest of the world. We might find ourselves very quickly closed off to travel. Well, the Canadians already want us to be vaccinated. The Americans already signaled that by the beginning of November, we will need a vaccine to enter a U.S. port, and on and on. I don't think this is now a debatable issue. I think the issue now is how we are going to get it done. Now, of course, there will be medical exemptions. There will be people who don't want to take the vaccines, but will prefer to go through the inconvenience and cost of providing a regular test. But
right, that option is very costly. So it has been
costly,
but I don't see it being practical for most people. At what was it, $10,000 and up for taking a test. And if you have to do that each week, that adds up very, very, very quickly. So do you think then that the way forward is for the private sector to issue these mandates to their employees, since it is that employees have largely complied because the alternative is too expensive and inconvenient?
And the fact is that let us not beat around the bush. It's a way of saying, you get vaccinated, or the cost and the curtailment of your movement is going to be painful. But we have to look around. Jamaica has the third lowest vaccination rate in the Western Hemisphere. Only Nicaragua and Haiti are below us. The countries in the world that have opened up, countries like Portugal, over 80% vaccinated, Denmark over 80%, the UK over 70%, and on and on and on. We risk getting left behind by the rest of the world. And we as business, we have to recognize that we have to be competitive with the rest of the world. Jamaica is a tourism-dependent economy. Our economy fell 18% in 1 year. The largest drop we have gone through all sorts of crises, perhaps since World War II. We have to, we have to make choices. Not every choice is going to be pleasant or practical. I'm speaking personally. All my kids from 12 years to their late 30s are fully vaccinated. All my siblings are fully vaccinated. My nieces and nephews, my mom's 29 grandchildren, my 88-year-old mother and my 91-year-old father, all vaccinated, all fully vaccinated. So, but this is our choice. Yes, there will be medical exemptions. Yes, there will be people for their own personal beliefs. But individual rights sometimes have to yield to the collective good and the community good. Jamaica, yes, we are exceptional in many ways, but the disease doesn't discriminate just because we feel we are ourselves exceptional. And government has been cautious. Employers don't have that luxury because many of us have lost a terrific amount of revenue. There are many organizations operating at virtually no revenue. But even if you're a hotel with no guests, you still have expenses. You have security costs, you have maintenance costs, you have utility costs, you have mortgages. I don't think anybody builds a hotel with cash and not have some mortgage or some bank debt to service. We have to be realistic.
Yeah.
And we have to make choices, hard choices.
Very hard choices. Thank you so much for your input, Wayne.
Anytime.
Now here's a recap of some of Wayne's main points. According to Wayne, staff at companies that have issued vaccine mandates have largely been complying and getting vaccinated. He believes this is because they prefer the stability of keeping their job and not having to bear the expense of regular testing. Although the issue is now headed to court, Wayne believes employers should be entitled to ask people entering their premises, whether employees or clients, to be vaccinated. New employment contracts should address the issue of vaccination. And that's it for this episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. If you're interested in a loan product for your own business, visit eximbankja.com or drop me a DM. Also visit my website, KalilahReynolds.com, for a summary of this episode. You can click the link in the description box below. I'm Kalilah Reynolds. Until next time.